I like game shows. One of the reasons I like it is because there's always the proverbial one math problem that they have to solve. And then you get to see if this person is confident about math or they're truly panic-stricken about it. So if you look at the first situation that you'll see here that's coming up, it's a game show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Which of these square numbers also happens to be the sum of two smaller square numbers? Panic-stricken, he doesn't know what to do. Time is, buzzing along, so he takes an intervention. And of course, he polls the audience. And of course, the audience knows best. The answer must be A. So he selects A, and he loses. So let's see, how about if we have a celebrity, where we take something in, same game show. Here's Patricia Heaton from Everybody Loves Raymond. She's exclaiming, I can't believe it, I'm so bad at math. So Regis Philbin, like a good teacher, gives her wait time. And then like an even better teacher, gives her the answer. So then we move to, well, how about someone like Richard Hatch, who was on The Survivor? He works it out in his head and out loud, and then chooses an answer of 123. What I found out then is that he reverses numbers. No one else talked about that. How about if let's go to somebody who's a little more experienced, been around the block a little more? Something like elapsed time. This person talked it out, was unsure, but chose no lifeline to work with it. So what if it's like, what if it's in a movie situation, like not a media situation? So here we got the Scarecrow. Gets his diploma, first thing he says, the sum of the square roots of any two sides of an isosceles triangle is equal to the square root of the remaining side. What? It's not correct. Well, if we were going to grade all of these types of things, how would we do it? If we go back to the 1800s, we would grade on a 4-point scale. Why? Well, the reason why is because math really wasn't studied in high school, studied in college. The other reason is there was only 500 high schools in the United States, so we could give time to give comments to students and feedback. We moved then from a 4-point scale to a 100-point scale. Why? Because we went from 500 high schools to 10,000 high schools. And then we said, let's go to a 100-point scale because we can sort kids. It's much easier as a factory method to do that. That's for you, Tony, because when you said PGs, that's what I thought of. So what about if we say, okay, not with the BGs, what if we look at it in terms of something like, oh, a newscast. They can get the math right. They got fact checkers, right? Come on. They have to get that right. Isn't that the case? There's got to be something wrong with that graph. I don't know. No, the real problem is, like my grandma would say, it's all that technology. That's what it is. If we hadn't put in technology, everybody would know what they're doing. So let's go back and look at it. First worst piece of technology that they talk about has to be calculators. That's what it is. If we give them calculators, they're not going to be able to think. That's the problem. And that's what they're saying. They're going to resist doing work, not going to be able to do it. So that's where the real problem was, the technology. Well, I did a little bit of research and started going back in time. No, it was actually, if you go back to 1950, it was the ballpoint pen! We're going to ruin education! You know why? Because those students are going to, throw away these pens. We're not going to recycle, reuse, and reduce, things like that. Oh, but no, let's go back further. The real thing is because it's the fountain pen. That's what the problem is. It's this whole thing of that they're extravagant, they cost money. We're leading to waste. It's a luxury. I can't believe that, 1941. Oh, and then the other problem is to go back even further in 1929. The real problem is that we sell the ink at a store. And you know what? That's the real sad commentary on modern education. They're going to run out of ink, want to be able to write words, things like that. That's the real problem. Well, I go back further. 1907, the real problem is that we're using the pen instead of the pencil. That's really the problem is. No, go back to 1815. The real problem is that we're not using parchment, we're using paper! Go back to the 1700s. The real problem is now we're using slate instead of bark. Pulling off of a tree to write something down? I can't believe it. 1703. They're going to be unable to write because they've got this slate to work with. Well, let's buzz ahead to the future. Back, the president CEO of IBM said, I think there is a world market for maybe 5 computers. Looks an awful lot like the same. We're going back to the future. 15 million of those babies have been sold. So, what is this? Why in the world do we have a 100-point scale? And any research about it? Back in 1912, 2 researchers from the University of Wisconsin, when they weren't drinking, came up with the idea that The more numbers you have, the more inaccurate the grade is. So my recommendations are as follows. Stop blaming the technology and find new ways to engage students. Explore a 4-point scale that looks at standards of achievement. Work at including higher levels of questioning that focuses on mathematical understanding and not on answer getting. And remember, do all this to stay alive.